This motion was heavily defeated.
Commitments have made this impossible, and consequently, I am aware when this century began to operate machinery for the regular one has caused any of the own people and of all those over their name. I say good luck. And indeed,
But of course, Mr. Chairman, I'm not here speaking only for my own constituency party. I'm here as the appointed spokesman of the 79 organisations who withdrew their resolutions in favour of this one, of which 75 withdrew them also in favour of the resolution of the Transport and General Workers Union. I want to make, in my short time, just one point in answer to one of Sam Watson's accusations. It's all very well for him, at the end of a speech lasting 34 minutes, he asked a whole row of difficult questions of chaps who've got 5 minutes. But I just want to answer one of his accusations, which is that unilateralists are unwilling to defend our way of life or the things that we believe in. For myself, I reject that completely. Like him, and like all of you, I have within this island almost everything that makes life dear to me. My wife, my children, some of them are my grandchildren.
let me say very proudly that my organization stood on that side when the communists were opposed to us. And if the communists go on to the other side tomorrow, we shall still stand there with our belief that this weapon ought not to be used by us. And let me say, with great respect to that dear friend of ours personally and our own union, Aniron Bevan, that he was the man who said to me, Frank, you're wrong. The Russians don't believe that we should polarize this. They think we should retain our weapon. I don't agree with Khrushchev on this. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but it has nothing to do with the resolution that's in front of the Labour Party at this moment. And then Sam said, we've never had a document which included so much agreement. That's quite true. There's only one simple issue of difference between us on it. The NEC think that the policies of the Western Alliance and our own country ought to be based on the theory of having the bomb. We think they ought to be based on the opposite theory of not having the bomb. We think that our policy, our defense policy, is completely contradictory to the foreign policy of this country. We talk of having friendship with Russia. We talk of recognizing the compatibility of the two political systems. Recognize the difference in economic problems that come in front of us, and then threaten them with the bomb. You can't get friends like that. I'd like to go quickly, if I could, through this thing. George Brown, I think, was the man that was being talked about when they said that people who tried to patch up the differences. I want to say to you this, he probably can't say it for himself. George Brown, over the last few months, has shown more political courage than most people. I've disagreed with him, but he's had the courage to stand up and say that he thought we ought to reach understandings. And he ought to reach understandings on the belief that we could get out of the use of the bomb at some future date. He was right, by some means or other, to possess nuclear weapons. Mikado said, and I thought this ought to be well recognized by you, that when we talk about political control over NATO, we are pretending. There can be no political control over an organization that has its very activity related to the pressure of buttons which set off missiles. There can be no political control over that, and some of you know that very grave pressures have been put upon the American government to insist that we have this kind of pressure. But some of you would have read yesterday's papers, I'm sure you would, because on one of them, the other doesn't exist. Our whole policy, you know, is based on this fear of Russia. We talk with one breath about the economic threat that comes from that country. And yet we go on paralyzing our own economy, Harold Wilson made a very interesting one, nationalise defence. Oh yes, it'd be lovely. Nationalise the industries that are involved in defence, and if we got that, half of our problem would go. But we're talking as if we can go on spending the terrific millions on defence, on a useless defence, and then economically compete with Russia. And I want to remind you that some of the things that are said in the Labour Party's policy statement should bear some very close examination by you. They call for it. Because Sam talks about we would be repudiated if ever we were to tell the electorate in this country that we had surrendered the defence of these fair isles. Of course we would. And we deserve to be. But you know, we are putting out a policy statement that says that we will never use this weapon first. And at the same time having to accept that you can never use it second as far as this island is concerned.
On one thing, we can agree that this has been a magnificent debate, argued with passion and conviction and clarity on all sides. But I would like to start with, and despite the television lights, to try to lower the temperature a little. I want to do that because I think you would wish me, before I come to the issues which divide us, to recall the things on which we are united. Morality comes into it, and if we are to judge on moral grounds, we should give the prize to those who advocate the things which will be most likely to achieve peace. No, but those who advocate unilateral nuclear disarmament by Britain on grounds of principle are led to ask themselves this question: are they then taking the line, to use Ted Hill's words, that we will have nothing to do with nuclear weapons, that nevertheless we remain within a NATO alliance which possesses those weapons? Are we going to take the line, are they going to take the line, that all they want to do is to get rid of what they regard as the moral discredit attaching to Britain having these weapons, while they can get the security they want because America has them? No, I agree. But there's a conclusion you draw from that. And it's a conclusion to their credit. To their credit, which recently the campaign for nuclear disarmament has drawn. For it's necessary to say these things because it's been cloaked even in this debate. All right. So you are proposing that we should tell NATO unilaterally and the West to do without nuclear weapons. What is going to be the effect of that? Supposing it were accepted. I had to say on this subject was justified. If there are minor points of difference, friends, I cannot see the justification either for the resolution or for the opposition to the policy statement. Right, perhaps you will say, no, they are not minor, they are major. Major, right, I have given you the arguments. And if that is the case, of course, we ask for the rejection of the resolution. Mr. Chairman, noise of that kind only shows you don't want to hear the argument.
Order, please.
$3,303,000. Votes against, 2,896,000. I declare the motion carried. Voting on motion 60. Votes for, 3,282,000. Votes against, 3,239,000. Motion 60 is carried. I'm sorry. My mistake, I meant the statement. I'm sorry. We will now take a vote on the statement of policy by the National Executive, and we will take vote number 6. 1,999,000. Against 3,331,000. The motion is lost. Labour Party. Just one.
Mr. Chairman, in moving resolution 2. And I ask you to look carefully at what is being said. Because if we have this right to possess the nuclear weapons, then every other country in the world has the same right. And if they have the right, how do we ever get into that atmosphere of avoiding the accidental drift into war?
Are we really so simple as to believe that the Soviet Union, whose belief in the ultimate triumph of world communism is continually reiterated by their spokesman, are not going to use the power you put into their hands if you do unilaterally disarm in this way?
Of course you will.
Well, all I can say is this.
Thing on the defence policy statement. For 3,042,000. Against 3,339,000.